Hello and welcome to the Past Business Analytics Marathon. We're excited you could join us today for Lynn Langit's session on visualization tools for data discovery. My name is Dan English. I'm the leader of the Past Business Analytics virtual chapter, and I have a few quick introduction slides before I hand over the reins to Lynn. Next slide, please. If you're having any issues, type your issue into the question pane and someone will assist you. To maximize your screen, you can use the Zoom button located at the top of the presentation window. Feel free to enter your questions in the Q&A field at any time. The questions pane is located on the right side of your screen. Once we get to the Q&A portion of the session at the end, I'll read off your questions to the speaker. Note, there will also be a short evaluation at the end of the session. Your feedback is important to us, so please take a moment to complete it. It will show up on your screen when the session ends. Next slide. I'd like to also take a moment to thank our event sponsors. The staging of the Past Business Analytics Marathon would not be possible without their support and dedication. And they are the reason this event is available free of charge. Thank you to our presenting sponsors, Microsoft and Hortonworks. Next slide, please. Lynn Langit was a developer evangelist for the Microsoft MSDN team for 4 years before leaving Microsoft in October of 2011 to do consulting and training. Prior to working at Microsoft, she founded and served as the lead architect of a development firm that created BI solutions. She holds a number of partner awards such as Microsoft SQL Server MVP, AWS Community Hero, Google Developer Expert in the Cloud. She's authored and taught for Wintellect and Lyndia.com. Lynn's been doing production work with SQL Server, Hadoop, .NET, Java, and more. She is also co-founder of the nonprofit Teaching Kids Programming. At the Past Business Analytics Conference taking place in April in Santa Clara, California, Lynn will be presenting a full-day pre-conference session entitled 3 Tools an Hour, 24 free tools every business analyst needs, and also a breakout session titled Using Premium Data for Analysis. Next slide. If you want to connect with Lynn or if you have any questions after watching this webinar, you can contact her via these mediums here. She's on Twitter, LinkedIn, her blog, YouTube channel, and the Teaching Kids Programming. Next slide. The Past Business Analytics Conference is on April 20th through the 22nd this year in Santa Clara, California. The conference is designed to follow the analyst's journey from sessions covering the discovery, analysis, and visualization of data to communicating insights throughout your business. Along this journey, you'll gain the critical business and data analytical skills you need today to stay ahead of the curve. Industry experts and professionals will show you how to use technology to uncover insights and deliver new value to your organization. The unique design of this conference gives you practical and indispensable knowledge you can use immediately. Next slide. And without further ado, here's Lynn with her presentation, Visualization Tools for Data Discovery.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks to Dan for the nice introduction and for the Past BA group for inviting me to talk about my session in this preview event. So in this next hour, I'm going to give you a look at part of the pre-con that I'm going to be doing, the 3 free tools an hour, 24 tools that every analyst needs to have in their toolkit. And I'm going to focus on the first part of it, which is data discovery. So in this session, I'm going to do a lot of fun demos. I thought it would be a way to kick it off in a really fun and interesting way. So let's get started. So in my work as a big data and cloud architect, I'm often doing engagements with companies, oftentimes enterprises, but sometimes startups, to help them to figure out how to get actual business value out of big data projects. And to that end, I've created this pipeline process based on my work as a consultant over the past 4 years, helping companies to bring their ideas to business value. And I've set up this pipeline steps, which really tends to work pretty effectively with companies. So The steps are to document and clean, to acquire and discover, document and clean your existing data, acquire and discover new data, or maybe more existing data that isn't currently being used, to process and store it, to query and mine it, and to visualize it. One of the interesting things that I found in the topic for today's session is normally you think of visualization at the end of your process, but because of the nature of big data and some of the new possibilities around acquiring and discovering data, I've actually found myself working with my clients and using visualization tools in the beginning as well as at the end. And so we're going to look today at this first stage of acquiring and discovering data that could be useful in these big data projects and how visualization tools play out or can help in the beginning rather than the end, which is, learning that I came to over time and I wanted to share with the community. So when you're looking at your big data project, and the verticals that I've done the most production work in are biomedical, education, manufacturing, but I've done more. Those are three just recent that I've done production work in. One of the things that's interesting around big data projects is the possibility of including data that you don't own. And that data could be data that is available for free. In other words, public data, such as government data, or in the case of medical, maybe some medical data that was published as the result of research or just put into the public domain for the greater good. Or you could buy some data, because more and more traditional data providers, such as companies like Dun & Bradstreet that validate business data, are starting to make their premium data available through acquisition and visualization tools like Excel, for example. So when I'm working with companies to figure out what the data should be for their new big data projects or their new data projects, we look, of course, at their own data, and we use some of these visualization tools to understand their own data, particularly if they haven't looked at it for a while, if there's parts of it that were archived or sections that were just too big to be properly visualized. But more and more I find myself using these visualization tools to help companies understand the possibility of these new kinds of data, because a lot of times these open data sets are really just plain old boring text files, and they're really hard to get any sense of the usefulness or the value without some kind of visualizers. So that's the premise of the talk today. So we're going to be looking at these visualization tools through the acquisition or the potential acquisition of public data, data that's hosted on the major cloud providers. And we're going to look at all the big three, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, because they all have kind of a different story around that. Also, it's sort of interesting to think about the possibility not only of acquiring data off of the clouds of these providers, but possibly even once you go through your particular big data project and you come out with some enriched data, selling some of your enriched data back out through these clouds, which again has been a new type of business that I've helped some of my companies realize. Looking at governments, universities, and using these visualizers so you can make sense of the data, because like I said, they're usually just walls of text files or some other proprietary text format. Some of the repositories include visualization tools, and some of the times we want to use add-ins or some capabilities that maybe we didn't know that were there or available for free download in some of our favorite tools. And of course, some use Excel because that's just the most common one in this time frame. And we're going to start with open data. So to that end, this is kind of the big kahuna of open data. We've all heard of Wikipedia. Those who are listening may not have heard of DBpedia. So this is, and I purposely picked the visualization since this is a talk about visualization. This is a visualization of DBpedia. So what is DBpedia? DBpedia is trying to turn Wikipedia into a database, basically, by imposing a schema over the top of it. Now, for those of us who come out of the relational world, this is no kind of schema that we're probably familiar with. This is linked data, or RDF, or a triple store, which basically means that you have 3 parts to each data element. Now that, neither here nor there, we in the relational community are just really wholly unfamiliar with this. And I'm going to jump out and first show you DBpedia, and I'll show you the query tool, which is the way we would typically approach this data. I think you'll start to understand why new visualization tools become important when we're working with new types of data. Even though this visualization, which I just grabbed a picture, it actually is interactive, is pretty, I think we would all agree that the usefulness of it is somewhat limited in terms of comprehending or working with the potential for data. So that being said, I'm going to just jump out here and we'll go to DBpedia. So DBpedia, here's the link, and I'll publish all these links up on my blog after this, is the semantic web, as it says, the mirror of Wikipedia. So basically, it imposes a schema over the top of Wikipedia with a triple store. And it's a great data set as well, just to explore, to get some idea of, how you turn public data into consumable data, what is available, working with public data, the quality issues, and it's relatively large, so you can get some idea of working with large amounts of data. So it's a common data set that people that we're working with open data start with. Now, if you were to query this, because all of us relational folks would probably think of, well, is there some sort of SQL-like query language? There is. It's called Sparkle. But again, the syntax is very, very different. I mean, we have a select, okay? We have a distinct. But because we're dealing with triples, which are not relational tables, the results aren't going to be super meaningful. And I can tell you, having spent some time with the Sparkle language, it's a new type of a language going against the triples and really trying to trace the relationships between the triples. So as this query is running, this is pulling the concepts back from the DBpedia. You can see these are ontologies, so taxonomies, if you will, and then you can click in and you can say, okay, I want to learn about enzymes. And you can see this is your schema. So this would be equivalent to the DDL in a SQL Server. Well, yeah, this isn't helping us very much, and you can get into the weeds very fast, particularly if you're exploring. Because one of the things that I'm doing when I'm working with my clients is I'm trying to get them to get a sense of what data is out there, so then we can figure out what we might want to add or combine or include in data projects. So one of the things that's interesting, and I pulled this off from the DBpedia, is they have some interesting visualizers, and I'm going to just show one here. So let me just refresh this. Okay, so this one, I think if I go to the third demo, I think that's the cool one. Let me just pull this up. Actually, that's not the one I wanted. Let's see. It's a heat map over time. There we go. So I particularly liked this visualization. You can see here's the timeline up here, and it's giving you a heat map over time. Now again, we probably all know the history, the unfortunate, tragic history of World War, but consider the effectiveness of understanding where the data is and where the data of interest is versus the Sparkle query versus going through the ontologies. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious to understand that if you had some sort of situation where you needed data around a certain geographies, that working with a heat map when you're processing a large amount of data, particularly if you're looking over time, is a much more effective technique because, and pleasurable in some ways. You can just sit there and watch it and say, yeah, I mean, now again, obviously we know the history here, but I'm interested in data at this time period over these locations, and this is something that I want to go out and grab. So this concept is really the concept I'm going for when I work with my customers and get them exposed to new types of data, is using these visualizers to sort through tons and tons of data in a quicker way than traditional queries. Because again, another thing you're going to run into is these data are in different formats, and you have, like I showed with the Sparkle, you have all these different query languages and query tools. So if you can get a visualizer, you can more quickly get an idea of the effectiveness of the data. So that being said, let's talk about where some of this public data is in addition to DBpedia. So I'm going to go with the big three cloud vendors, and there's more. This will just give you kind of a taste of it. There's also dedicated data for sale websites, if you will. But I just think it's easier for those of us coming out of the enterprise to start with something that probably most of us know, which is the cloud, public cloud. So we've got public data sets on Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. So where are they? How do you find them? How do you work with them? And it's interesting how they're a little bit different. So in Amazon, you have public data sets, only public data. They don't have any premium data at this point in time. So, you know, it's census data, health data, that kind of stuff. And the way that it works is you have to launch a virtual machine and then an EC2 instance, and then you have to add an EBS instance, so elastic block storage or you know, like file storage. And then the data set here has an ID, and basically you launch an EBS, or it's like attaching a file, or a file structure, if you will, and then you can run an EC2. Now they started in Amazon, I noticed when I was researching this, that you can run directly out of S3, which is their, you know, just standard file storage. And one of the things that's interesting is there's some tools that you can use so you don't have to spin up EC2, because I honestly didn't want to do that. So just a tip that I found, and I'll show you guys what it looks like, is there's a browser here that you can get. Now you have to pay, it's like $50 if it's commercial. But this allows you to go into your Amazon S3. You have to put your credentials in, and you can browse your buckets or folders. So if you're an Azure person, this is like a blob storage, but for Amazon. And what I thought was really interesting is here I pulled out the engrams for all the books, all the US books. And you can just go in here and you can say, add external bucket, because I wanted a way to work with this without spinning up EC2. So this is like, I guess, my little tip, if you will, because S3 browser is free for non-commercial use. So when you're just testing things out, and I'll show you what it looks like here. So here's the, over here, here's the engrams, and it just shows engrams are, again, we've got tuples inside of here, and this is about all the book data. And then it shows you the format here. And then in here, you just attach to the S3, and here's your S3 browser. And you just download the S3 browser. Works on Windows. I don't know that it works on a Mac, but works on Windows, and it's free. So to me, that was a little tip if you want to work with any of the Amazon data sets and you don't want to spin up EC2. I just thought it was a little quicker. And again, the technicality of it is you just put the address in, and then you click in, and then you have access to the data, and you can upload and download. And you can't view it in here, but you can upload and download it. So just like a fun thing, because I don't always want to spin up EC2. So in Google, let me just go over to Google here. Google has a data set viewer, which I think is great. So they don't have as many data sets yet, but so for example, if you go to public data here, and you have things like the World Trade Organization, global competitiveness, and then if you click explore this data set, they have a viewer inside of it, or a visualizer, which I wish everybody would have. Microsoft has one, Amazon really doesn't at this point. And it's like a pivot table, really. So you can see it's very familiar. So you can say, okay, we're not interested in Spain. But to me, these kind of tools are really sort of useful, and I actually really like Google's viewer. I think it's the best of the three. They don't have as many data sets, but I often will go to Google first because I like their viewers. They're really, really easy to use. And again, you can see all those different formats over here. And the idea is that you can take a quick look at these public data sets, and you can see if they're going to be useful for you. So there's the good old bubble chart. Kind of fun, huh? So I mean, again, it's quick and obvious, but you may not have known that it was there, because when I show a lot of my customers, they're not even aware that these kind of tools are out there. And this is, of course, playing over time down at the bottom here. So this is broadband penetration in Europe. So I can find out quickly which European countries I could live in, because broadband penetration is important in terms of where I'd want to be. So in any case, so I showed the Google. So Microsoft has a really rich and interesting offer that I find a lot of people don't know about. And I want to take a couple minutes and show it to you. So they're really serious about this. They have the Azure Marketplace. And why I say it's rich and interesting is because they got out there first, and they have both public data, but more interestingly, they have premium data. So they're the first people in the major cloud vendors that actually sell data And they've actually started to sell both data and analysis. This has been so interesting to me that just very recently, you can see up at the top here, and I'll demo it in a minute, they're actually pushing some samples out from Azure Machine Learning. And this is not data. This is, machine learning analysis or algorithms. So it's premium data and premium algorithms. And if you think about this has a very interesting potential for commercialization of big data projects that maybe you or your team is working on. When you get to the end of the pipe and you have the value internally applied to your company, you can look at exposing a subset of what you have learned as a premium offer for your company. And I'll give you a specific example. I worked with a facilities management company, so all the IoT, the smart building stuff. What they were thinking about doing is once they were able to work with ML and get the IoT data and provide value back to their customers by helping them to have smarter buildings, they were envisioning creating algorithms that they could sell commercially that would help people to have smarter facilities without them having to buy their facility management software, which I thought was a really, really interesting approach. So given the richness of this environment, I'm going to take a couple minutes and show it to you. So this one is the Azure Marketplace. And although they have free data here, and let me just go ahead and go into the Azure Data Market. Let's see, got to get to the right spot here. When I'm looking at this one, I don't really focus too much on the free data. I usually go to Google for that. I go to the premium data for this. So let me just say Azure Data Market. And this is tied to your live ID because it's premium and you're often buying. A lot of the premium vendors in here have trials, like most of them do. So the aspect of visualization for premium data here or for new data here is that you can look at the visualizers inside of here. So here we go. And the way that the data and services are sold in here is via subscriptions. And the subscriptions are based on the number of data access points. Let's see. See if I'm going over here. No, I have to get there. That's the tricky part. So let me just take a minute and type this. I have to look here. Sorry, guys. There we go. Okay, so first thing I need to do is sign in. And now inside of here, I can see the data that I have subscribed to. Now, if I go, I can just look at the free data. And let me just pick something that's free here. So I'll pick country codes. And you can see that there's an explore this data set once you're subscribed. And even if it's a zero price, you have to subscribe. Again, this reflects the commerce model. It's a little different than the approach that Google and Amazon are taking. And this is a little browser that looks kind of like Excel. And in fact, you can see over here this works with Excel. So, and you can see inside of here if you wanted to filter, it's pretty obvious the way that it works. So if you say continent, and I only want to say EU, then I say filter. And you'll notice that this is a URL because you can access this programmatically. And then if you wanted to work with this in Power Pivot, you could do that as well, and you would need to have this key. So in terms of visualization, you do have your wall of numbers here, but what I do like about it is it does have the filters, and it does allow you to work with it really easily in Excel. So other things that are interesting about the Azure Marketplace are the premium data offers. So if I go inside of here and I type in address verification, this is something that I see businesses not understanding that this kind of data is out here, and I still see things like manual address verification going on inside companies where you can now work with these services, and what they'll do is you actually connect to these services via various tools. It can be Excel, it can be SSIS and SQL Server. You have to look at the vendor and see what they do, and then you can automate the process using the vendor's premium data and algorithm of doing something like making sure your core business data is correct. So this goes actually more towards cleaning data in preparation for big data projects, but it is a set of tools that you can use inside of here. Now the last thing that I want to show you is in here is the new ML stuff. So this is super fun stuff. So what this does and has is this is an endpoint. Now some of these have sample web apps. So again, this is obviously very stats based. So it's a normal distribution quantile calculator, and they give you an example and how it can handle normal distributions. Now if you know stats, you can probably read that and make sense out of it. But in terms of visualizing this, Microsoft's done kind of a cool thing, is that they've created these stub websites basically on Azure, where you can go ahead and put the inputs in, and then you can get the output in terms of, in this case, the associated calculated quantile with the probability. And this is live stuff, so it's not some fake thing. So you can go in there. Now again, this isn't as visually beautiful, but for me, this has a lot more meaning rather than just reading it, is I can try this out. And it's really kind of interesting because this is a service running on top of data. So taking a bunch of data and then applying this, in this case, a statistical calculation on top of it is kind of an interesting thing. So in addition to the big three, there is, I picked one that was not the big three just to show you what's out there. And there's a lot of these. But this is the one I happen to use. It's called Quandl. And Quandl has the freemium sort of model, where the majority of the data they have, and they have a lot, is public data. And they kind of, this is their business. So as the cloud providers kind of do this on the side, and the full open source people like DBpedia do it, but they don't, it's more of a labor of love. It's the open source community contributing. Quandl, this is their commercial business. So this is, I think, kind of the trend in the future, where we're going to have more and more of these data repositories that have a freemium offering, where you can look through the data, and they provide rich visualizers because, it's new data. And they also provide integration, and then they provide premium services that you pay for. So let me show you kind of how Quandl works so you can get an idea of what's possible here. So when you go to the Quandl website and you do a query, you get a very, very rich interface that you're used to. And you can see that you get these visualizers here over time. You have a lot of different filters. You can favorite this. You can mark your favoriting. So it's a very very rich interface. You can download it. They have APIs to work with it. They're really, this is their business, making data available to you. They have libraries including Python, and this is a Quandl query basically in here. So you have a Quandl Python package if you're doing your data science in Python, or they have R. So again, to me, these guys are really kind of the premium people out there. That's why I choose to use them. And kind of what the process that I'll take with customers is what I showed you here, is I'll start with the DBpedia just to see kind of what's out there, and then I'll look at the big three cloud providers, and oftentimes I find myself coming back to Quandl. So if I go into it, I'll just show you the top level here. It literally is a Google for data, if you will. So if I go inside here, it's a lot of fun too. All of us are data people. So they have example searches, and then I'll just put a value in once this loads. And see, here we can see this is their premium financial data, of course, always. So I'll say health and search for data. Like, I've spent hours on here. It's so much fun. And I'm thinking that all the people that are taking the time to listen to me probably would agree, because you're probably, I'll go on the health indicators, you're probably as interested in data as I am. And then you get back into the rich visualization. So it's just that simple. It's very nicely done. Now, in addition to using websites, of course, one of the great techniques is to use the tools that we have. So what are those tools? Let me just bring that up. So we all live and breathe in Excel. So I'm going to show you some things in Excel. I'd certainly be remiss if I did not. I'm not going to show you the stuff that, the built-in charts. I'm going to show you some things you can add in. One of the things that I probably won't take the time to show, but I encourage everybody to get a copy of, is Tableau Public or Tableau Free or whatever it's called, at the desktop edition, because it's just something I use all the time. And it only has a limited number of data sources. That's Tableau's model. That I think it's just CSVs and a couple more things. And then you have to buy it if you want to be able to connect to anything in the world. I actually think Tableau is so useful that I have actually bought it, which is rare for me. But it connects to everything, and it provides quick and dirty visualization. I've had some fun with Wolfram language, which I might show you if we have time at the end. It came from Mathematica, and Stephen Wolfram has now launched a full-on data visualization language that has an English-like query in it. So I've had kind of a lot of fun looking at some of the open data with Wolfram language as well, because you can query external sources. I showed you the Google data sets. Google also has charts and fusion tables. This is kind of just to be inclusive. I think most of my audience here would probably prefer to use Excel charts because they're richer, but Google does have them. There's something called OpenHeatMap, and then I've been doing a lot with GitHub data too. So let me take a few minutes and go into Excel first, and then I'll come back around to some of these other things if we have time, because I want to show you lots of tools. So inside Excel, I thought I'd start with something fun. Let me just close out of this because I'm probably not going to show this. So this goofy thing is an add-in to Excel. So if you didn't know, Excel has a whole bunch of add-ins, and this is a bubble visualization, which is just to me a lot of fun. And there's the data over here. So if I go into the data, just to be showing you it's a live thing. Let's see if I can make it a live thing. My computer seems to be going a little slow there. There we go. And then I have to go over here and refresh it. So let me go back and go here and then reload it. And I mean, this is obviously an oversimplified example, but the idea is some of these visualizations that I showed you on the web are available as add-ins to Excel. And where you get them is from the Office add-in store, and a lot of these things are free. Microsoft Research has put a lot of them out, and they've just stuck them into the Office store. So as this is coming up, let me just show you. They're under here, under My Apps. And I'm just going to tempt fate here. There we go. Okay, and there it's loaded, and there it went back. So I think I'm just pushing my computer with too many things open. So underneath here, if I go in here, I'm using the Bubbles add-in. And if you weren't aware, I went to the Insert button, and then you can just go and search in the Office apps. Ones that I've used before is I've used the People Graph, and it shows a number of people. I guess I can take a minute and show you this. The histogram and the tree map. So there's a whole bunch of them. You can search inside of here and work with them. Let me just try. I'm going to get a new workbook page before I do that, so it doesn't look so goofy. And I'll say Insert. I think I might have it here. Yeah, because I like the People Graph. It's fun. Now again, this is not only good for adding data. What is happening is these public data sites with these new visualizers, they are driving the new types of data. So and the new types of visualizations. So if I go in here and I just change this and I say so many analysts, I can't even spell today. So many business people. How about that? So many people. I need my second cup of coffee. Well, you get the point, right? And then you go out here and you can select your data, and then I could go out and this is just using dummy data inside of here. Go inside of here, and generally the way these things work is they have a little control. You can reload. Now, if you want to view the source, if you want to edit it, because I know some of you guys are probably, want to make changes. So there's the source. This is a little HTML. But these are neat, and they can not only make your Excel visualizations a little bit more interesting, they can help you with bringing in some of this new data. So in addition to that, I was just showing you Quandl, and Quandl is sort of a nice demo on this because Quandl has an add-in for Excel. So I have a little screencast on my YouTube channel, but it takes like 5 minutes. It's you download it and you just put it in a certain directory, and then there it is. So what is great about this is, and how I've lost many hours of my day is, you can just search from inside of Excel, which is pretty fun. They've done a good job, and then you can visualize it however you want. So I can say, okay, total health expenditure, and it works via a code. So that's the only tricky thing, but it's pretty easy. And then you just have to actually be on that code, and then you go in and you do your download, and then you have your query. Now you have to have a key. It's free, so I guess I'll show you that. So you go over here, and then don't get my key, but that's where you get it. I'll have to change it. So and then this is your information. And then of course you can use any of Excel's visualizations, and also just to be complete inside of here. Sometimes they have the query parameters that you can pass through. So this is just an alternative. A lot of these different data sources are able to be integrated inside of Excel. Now, of course, I would be really remiss and incomplete if I didn't show Power Query, because Power Query, which of course is a free add-in for Excel, that is being updated, it seems like every month, but it's worth getting those updates because a lot of times when you get them, they have additional sources. So my favorite thing when I get a Power Query update is to go over here and see what sources the team has now added. So some things that I've noticed that have come in relatively recently is you can now get data from SAP Business Objects, which I wish I would have had that before from Salesforce. These are great new ads. My favorite one to show, of course, is from Facebook because why not, right? So why this is interesting to me is Facebook, like these other data repositories, has a proprietary format. It has a bunch of developer tools, but sometimes it's all about time when you're pulling in this extra data. Sometimes it's just easier if you can just pull this in through Excel. So I've already added my Facebook credentials so that you didn't have to go through that. And you can see that I put in the object or the username, and then I can specify, like, if I want to list all my friends. And I say OK, and this is doing a query to the Facebook Open Graph. And I probably shouldn't have done that one because it might not come back really quick, but not too bad. And so now it's opening the query editor. So if you've not taken the time to look at Power Query, I'm like a Power Query fanatic. So I've been on it since it was beta. And so I can't even imagine using Excel without it anymore. So I'm going kind of fast through some things, assuming that most of you have seen this. If you haven't, take some time to go look at the Microsoft channel on Power Query. So you can see this is wrapping the Facebook query language. It's encapsulating it just so you can just click, which saves a ton of time because navigating the Open Graph is its own little exercise in learning something new. So you can see this is a nested table. So if I want to see, I'll just do something really simple, like see how many of my friends are male, just for fun, because that's always a large number. So, because I am a technical person and the technical world is not gender balanced, shall we say. So, and then I could just say here, and then I could do a filter. So again, if you haven't seen this, you might say this is a stretch to call this a visualization, but I think it's not, because how quickly am I able to do this query against Facebook? Super quickly, and that's kind of the point. So maybe I should have said visualization and tools to be more technically correct, but I'm finding that any visualization and or tools helps me get into these other data repositories, which has helped me to have clients have success in big data projects. And this one, for some reason, this query is running a little slow. Don't know why, but, and then there you can see. And that's my result. So just really, really simple and fast like that. So I'm a big, and of course, if you have never seen this, I'll just finish it out. You just load and close, and this loads it back into Excel and or Power, can remember which one it is, Power View, I guess. Power Pivot, I'm sorry, Power Pivot, so that you can then join what are in essence tables. Make a little data model, and you can load it into tabular models or whatever you want to do. So these are key tools that I'm using like all the time inside of here. So I use this guy right here. I use the Quandl, and I use Power Query to go out and collect. And I kind of made a fun example there, but I will often use OData feeds because that can get into public data. This is Hadoop, all kinds of stuff. Now, if you happen to use the Azure cloud and you store data up there, you notice you can connect right there. I would be remiss if I didn't say that. This is back into the data market. So you can go directly into the data market. Let me just show this. I haven't looked at it for a little while. Let me see if they've enhanced it at all. So this is that market where I was showing you the premium data can connect. This has always been here, but this, as that market is improved, so is this add-in. So I'm kind of interested to see what this will produce. There. So these are OData feeds. That's what this is showing against the marketplace for all, and I'm subscribed to so many offers, it's probably taking forever. Yeah. So once these offers load, then I would be able to, and just to give you a relationship, I would be working against all the offers that I had inside of here. It's just a different way to look at it. So let me see if they've loaded. And I may come back to that because it's taking too long to load. So anyway, let me go back. All right, so other things I wanted to show you guys. So I was showing you the heat map early on, and there's a fun little tool out there that I just love. I actually do this with kids. You know how I teach children, and I'm actually starting to teach kids data science. I actually made a little exercise on this. And I'm not saying that this is only for kids. It actually is fun to do with adults as well. So literally this guy in, I think it's New Zealand, just created this open heat map site. So all you do is you upload your spreadsheet and then you get a heat map, which I know this seems goofy, but you know, I started off with heat maps because they're kind of cool, and I haven't found a good heat map tool inside of Excel. Maybe I just haven't looked. But this is like a two-step thing, and it's just sort of, you know, automatic. So you can do it off of Excel or Google Docs, and then you have a heat map. So you go inside of here. The guy made a 2-minute video, and he made an example, interesting example. And I'll go into the gallery. Oh, you can just upload. It has to be in a certain format just to show you what it looks like. And he's done a really good job. Just really simple. Just a quick and dirty heat map. I love these kind of visualizers because, again, you can take a pretty big amount of data and just put it in a tool like this and get a sense if the data is going to be useful or not. And have fun, right? We should have fun. Data's fun. So I love this open heat map tool. And just because I'm me, I want to see if this thing loaded. There we go. So you see over here, coming back to getting the Windows Azure Marketplace data inside of Excel. I've got, you remember that country codes? Here it is inside of here. So I could now pull this inside of Excel, and I could work with Power Query, or I could work with regular Excel or any of my tools. So again, I know I'm being a little bit scattery, but this is actually how I do the work. And I thought that for this audience, that might be kind of interesting and fun. That you could see how I actually iterate back and forth. All right, and where did my window go there? So it went into my query. All right, I think I'm going to go out of that because it's just taking too long because I have too many data sources. All right, going back up over here. One other thing I wanted to show you, because there's so much work being done in data visualization like this, that is, just being on little websites that you can just load data just for sample. One of the things, of course, with loading your data to a public website is you put your data on a public website. So sometimes, you can't do that. It's just not appropriate. So you need either to have a tool that you can download and run locally, or well, that is really what you need. So one of the things that I've done is I've been spending time on the open source code repository GitHub, and they have a section on data visualization tools. So I just, follow this. And if you're not aware, the big JavaScript library, the big set of tools is called D3. So this is, this is more on the code side, but it's more like scripting code. It's, it's JavaScript. It's not hardcore OOP coding. And this came out of New York Times, actually, where they wanted to add interesting visualizations to the online version. And they created this library that really is becoming more and more prevalent. And I like to use this for a couple of ideas around visualization. One, just imagination, because a lot of the enterprise is still kind of thinking about pie charts and tables and not really thinking about other kinds of visualizations. So rather than just assuming people know what a bubble chart is, I like to take them over here and actually show them some examples. And again, it adds a fun aspect to some of these big data projects. Data should be fun. People should want to see it because the visualizations are beautiful and interactive, and it's interesting. It's you might think it's fluffy and silly, but it's actually a competitive strategy. New York Times is one of the few newspapers that's actually doing well in this time of newspapers kind of going away, because they've added this interactive visualization. If you go to the online and look at New York Times, using these kinds of different visualizations. Let me just pick one of them so you can see what it looks like here. Such a nerd. Elliptical gearing. So here's the code, and you can see that it's interactive, right? So it has this playful element to it. Now, you might argue you don't know what it represents. Sometimes you get that, but it is interactive. And then here's the code down here. So my point in this is sometimes some of these visualization tools you're going to need to, or maybe want to pull something down from that's been created out. I mean, obviously it could be commercial, but there's a lot of open source stuff out here. So let me pick another one here. This is a pretty fun one. Now, I would much rather look at this than any sort of, chart or, I don't know, it's just I can get a sense of what kind of data is being represented. And again, this is really kind of, going out there. It's kind of on the cutting edge. But as we get more volumes, velocities, and varieties of data, as is so commonly said around big data, I really think that we have to have imagination around visualization. And in fact, it's kind of interesting. In some of the really, really forward-looking places, they actually have what they call data artists, because it's a new paradigm with all this data coming. And if it sounds far-fetched, I don't know. I mean, if you think about all the data points we just personally have between all of our social media and the IoT and all the devices and all the phone data, it just seems like we're really going to have to think a little bit differently, not just at the end of our projects, but really, to my point, at the beginning, when we're trying to figure out what kind of data we want to include, what is going to make some sense, or what's going to add meaning to our world. So I know this is a little bit kind of out there, but it's stuff that I actually do when I work with companies. So I wanted to share it with the community. So that being said, speaking of community, one of the situations I've had in learning some of these new tools that I wanted to share as well is there's quite a lot of work in the open data movement. And I used to go to programmer user groups, but I have found that I can learn programming languages online pretty much. What I can't learn is how to work with all these new kinds of data. It's just so much to learn. I prefer to learn it in a group. And so there's a group called Data Kind, and they have user groups basically in the United States and in I think London as well. No, actually in India too. Anyway, and they're funded by a guy from the New York Times. And the idea is the Data for Good movement. And they have different types of engagements. They're a nonprofit, from single day to like hackathons, but they call them data dives, where all people from the data science community, including analysts, will get together over a weekend and get data and help a nonprofit, to longer-term engagements where you take a sabbatical and you really dive in and help work with the possibility of big data to make a better world. And I think these people are fantastic. I've learned tons from them. I've gone to their events. I participated. Really fun. Another group that I've had the pleasure of meeting is the Kaggle people. They have contests. And I think now you get paid if you win. And also I know companies will hire Kaggle winners. And I just like reading about the contests, even if I don't have time to participate. The open government movement is very much part of Code for America. So even though they're doing programming, they're using open data. So I really like project-based learning when I'm trying to understand new paradigms. So I thought that would be an interesting way to close. And one of the things that I brought to this project-based learning get-togethers is I brought this idea of data visualization at the beginning to help more quickly to understand the usefulness of the data. So I know this is maybe a little bit different than what you expected when you tuned in. It wasn't, advanced pie charts and bar charts, but this is the world as I see it in big data. So hopefully this was useful for everybody tuning in, and I'm going to turn it back over to the moderator and allow for any questions. Thanks for listening in.
All right. Thank you very much, Lynn. If you are interested in accessing other free educational content, the PASS organization has a variety of virtual chapters. Lynn, if you could go to the next slide, I think we can show a list. One more. There we go. Which are all free webinars. They all offer free webinars to their members every month, and they check out upcoming webinars. You can go to the website on sequelpass.org/VC. And let's take a look at the questions as a wrap-up to your session here, Lynn. One question was, do you have a list of free data to experiment with? Like, do you have a top 3 or top 5 sites?
Yep, I do. I'll actually show you. I put it on my website, actually. So I'll show the audience here. I should have probably shown that. So good question. Thank you for asking. I have a page of my favorite free data sets. Doesn't everybody? I'm kind of joking. Some people watch TV. I go and play with data. It's coming up here. So it's lynnlangit.com, and right here, public data sets. Okay?
Perfect. Great question. And you're ready for us. All right. We have the same question in regards to everyone wants to know where you get the free public data. We got followed up. They loved your Power Query demos. Great information. Thanks a ton. The other big questions that we had, not specific to your presentation, was just about getting this recording. This recording for this session will be made available on the PASS Business Analytics website. For the conference website, if you go out there underneath the learning section, the recordings will be made available in the next day or two. Other people were wondering about those Office add-ins. How do you get those Office apps? You're showing the one with
sure.
the bubble?
Yeah, so, okay, I thought it went a little fast there, so good question, people, good question. So insert My Apps, and then you're going to go and search. So you'll have a My Apps button, and then you'll search in here. My computer's a little slow. Normally you would have a search somewhere. So My Apps, Store right here. And then you search on like bubbles or histogram right here. So there it is.
Perfect. A couple more questions here. One is in regards to these Excel Office apps. Will these visualizations work if you deploy them to Excel services?
Don't know. I can research on that and find out, but I don't use Excel services, so don't know.
Good question. Okay. And then the other one is in regards to this public and open data, do you have any concerns about the quality of these data sets?
Well, yes would be the short answer. It depends on where you're getting it from. Okay, so if it's census data, you have a certain quality standard because that data is validated. But if it's, for example, Wikipedia data, who validates that? I mean, it's community validated, which has some merit, but it depends on what the source is, I guess would be the answer.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much. All right, that was our questions. If we want to switch back to the slides real quick, we can wrap up here.
So we're here.
Sorry, I was getting a little ahead of myself.
That's okay.
All right. Okay, do you like what you heard here today? Lynn will also be presenting 2 sessions at the past Business Analytics Conference. She'll be doing a full-day pre-conference titled 3 Tools an Hour, 24 free tools every business analyst needs. And then she'll also be doing a 60-minute breakout session on using premium data for analysts. Next slide, please. Once again, the past Business Analytics Conference is April 20th through the 22nd in Santa Clara, California. Visit thepastbaconference.com to check out the great lineup of speakers who, along with Lynn, will be presenting at the event and to register today. Next slide. All right, stay tuned for our next session, an overview of predictive analytics for practitioners with Dean Abbott. Thank you all for attending, and now I believe we want to hand it over to our organizer, Elizabeth, to do a little wrap-up here. Elizabeth?